eyes up, don't get all tied up, hoping you wise up the multiple lies of the multifaceted, multi-complex system of living that people are living. Stuck in inertia, that's a diversion. Government worship, instead we are searching ancient mysteries, ancient history, sacred energy, and how to discern it. Human autonomy, truth of philosophy, UFOlogy, human psychopathy, super anomalies, human ecology, you got lobotomies up in your consciousness. All the thoughts that we've been dancing around. The system wants to blow your candle out, but we won't let it. We reject it with our pathetic lies, so we chant it down.
Chant It Down podcast is your gateway to your unraveling of a complex system that is grabbing hold of the lives of you and everyone you know. Come untangle from this woven web to understand this crazy world. Chant It Down with your host, Leumas.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. And it's another Swapcast with Trippin from Unlocking the Code. And today we're going to talk about a missing part of the world that a lot of people don't think about as far as the ancient past goes.
Very true.
So here we are. Welcome back, Trippin. It's been a while.
Has been a while, man. Lots of things happening, lots of changes, lots of movement, moving forward. It's good, man. We're moving forward. We're looking at different things and making moves, as I think we need to do in this time. I've really enjoyed your shows lately, man. You did a good breakdown of the 10 things the other day. I enjoyed that.
Thanks. Yeah.
And it's true. I think we probably, obviously, we're gonna go back to our passions this time around. However, the listeners probably we owe them another Canned Rabbit Holes podcast, I think, because I echo with what you said the other day, man. You said, look, I don't like talking about this. It's not where my passion lies. However, it's we have to, you can't not, right? That if we don't talk about it, then what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The truth is not known in the world, and we have to make it known because people are living in mind control, and they're in a slumber, and I couldn't, I came from that corner of things, but I never really. It's like, I want to talk about passions like this stuff, but people have to be aware of this stuff because they're deceived, and I know that some people may not dive right into our kind of work as far as telling the truth about things that don't know the truth, but maybe they can trickle in, and that's just my hopes that you never know, because like some people are. I was asleep once, so were you probably, and we are now here, so that stuff has to be covered. But thanks for that. That's true. We really do need to focus on that stuff, but then I like to throw this into
focus on it at the same time. I think the more that I observe, it's like, what can you affect, Leumas? You can affect you and your inner circle, but mainly it's you, right?
Yeah.
So get yourself right. Get yourself squared away. Work with yourself, mind, body, soul. Help other people as much as you can, and so I think the best way, in some ways, to fight it is to just don't comply and don't be a part of it. Just be human and live outside of all of it, because I think as soon as you give it energy, although it needs to be discussed, you're giving it power in some ways as well.
It's nice to have one foot in, one foot out, I think.
That's cool.
Because you got to be ready for shit to go down, but you also got to be ready for you also got to enjoy your life. I mean, I do know some people that are so entrenched in the conspiracy world that they become fanatics about it, and they live in kind of a dark space, and that's never what I've wanted to do with my show, and I'm sure the same with you.
No, definitely not.
I think talking about our ancient past too, though, really, really actually, if we don't know where we came from, then we don't really know where we're going, and so we're looking at some of the origins of how we got to here and this mysterious past that's been hidden from us. And I think it's super important anyway. So
the way that I've put it for many years, Leumas, is there's answers in the past to help us in the present, which will affect our future. If we can truly understand who this culture was and the echoes and maybe genetic echoes, and that's part of our conversation tonight, I think we can really move forward in a deeper understanding, because there's this stuff calls to us, man, and it begs us to try and unlock the code, unlock the mysteries behind these things. And where we're going to go tonight, as Leumas said, when I first started UTC, man, I was the pyramids and everywhere else. Then I think, hang on a minute. Where's Australia in all this? Where's the South Pacific in all this? Because it can't be on every other country and continent and then not be here, right?
Right.
And as it turns out, the story is short but long, as we've come up with a few times here, man. It's like it's pretty deep, but it's not that deep. However, part of unlocking the code's mission and something that we're going to be moving towards is to actually do more of this stuff, right? In fact, there's a few things we're keeping under our hat, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hey, Leumas, that we'll be revealing later. And part of that is continuing to unlock that mystery down under. But I think we're starting South Pacific, is it, brother? You're gonna take the con, mate. You take the con, and we'll go from there.
All right, yeah. So part of today's episode is to show that there was a worldwide megalithic culture in our ancient past, period. But you've heard of Egypt, Peru, Stonehenge, Baalbek, all these big sites across the world, but many haven't heard of what is in Australia or the South Pacific, and some of more left out lands in this picture. So most people beyond this part of the world don't know much about the South Pacific. Well, especially the South Pacific on a map, or how it's all laid out. Many people cannot point where things are. Even the best of cartographers might be kind of like, "Whoa, where's all this?" And of course, Australia is one big land, but still, it's not known in the megalithic world. So what we're looking at what either used to be Lemuria, or even more so, maybe Pangaea, when all the continents were joined into one landmass. Many of these don't fit the cultural architectures of these places. So we may not be littered in both of our lands with all this, ancient relics like Egypt would be, but we have little keys to the past. And I'll start here with some slides. And this is, of course, the land of Lemuria, according to some map makers. I mean, and it was, it's done well researched by a guy named James Churchwood. I think people should check.
Yeah, John read some of his stuff. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So basically, it is that all these little islands in the South Pacific, Polynesia, Micronesia, Melanesia, are all at the tops of the mountains of the sunken continent.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's start out here in Hawaii. Now, this is on Maui, and this is what we call a heiau out here. Heiaus, I wonder sometimes if these sites were sites of pyramids. None of the rocks are megalithic. They are able to be carried and lifted, and apparently a lot of these sites were people passing rocks to each other, making a foundation that you see here. This is the biggest one in Hawaii, but it's almost like a step pyramid, and it makes you wonder, was there actually a pyramid here at one time, and possibly later in history people tore it down, just because it does resemble that. I don't know what you think of that, but that's quite impressive.
Look, any of these step pyramid type stuff, these different things that are represented, I think what we need to talk about in this episode, before we talk about what's left in South Pacific, is the cycles of cataclysm, right? And I think we need to understand that if the human population has gone up and down, you know what I mean? Up and down, up and down, up and down, which means we've reached different levels of advanced states more than once. Now, the two massive reset buttons. The first one is 70,000 years ago, and the human population gets to about under 10,000. Right, we all come from that, all under 10,000 people. Yeah, and that was a supervolcano in Indonesia, which is in the
All right.
South Pacific.
Mhm.
Right. So if you are, when we talk about Atlantis and the sinking of Atlantis in between Madrid and America, the reason that it slid, it was compaction, right? So the ice melted from America, which lifted up the plate, which made the other plate sink, which basically sunk Atlantis once and for all. So if we're to say that 70,000 years ago, a supervolcano let go in the South Pacific, everything's gone, right? So this is what we need to grasp as well, is that I'm not sure if we know the sea levels prior to 70,000 years, but they were at least 400 feet lower 13,000 years ago.
Right.
This is prior to that. Okay. Now, there is a window of 50 odd thousand years to get to 12,000 or 13,000, as we like to round it out these days. However, if Lemuria or Mu, as you just showed us in the slides there, and by the way, we can confirm now through geological science and studies that there is a landmass basically between New Zealand and Australia that does sort of go up into Papua New Guinea and that way. There is a massive landmass. They've actually proven that geologically now. They don't argue about that.
Yeah.
That is beneath the waves. So if a supervolcano goes off, kills literally everybody on the planet bar 10,000 people hiding underground, anything that's left is gone, right? I think one of the problems we have when we discuss this stuff is understanding the level of catastrophe.
Mhm.
Right? Because we have no reference, right? Yeah, sure. Like Hawaii's had, hurricanes, tsunamis, and we've got some reference. But imagine 100, 200, 300 foot tidal wave across the planet, dude. Imagine the world on fire, not a country, not a bit of bushland. The world is on fire and it is rumbling. And it is, you would have been through earthquakes in Hawaii, yeah, in your time?
Yeah. I've been through a few, but they're minor compared to
They're
what.
minor. But again, so you extrapolate that, right? Imagine
Yeah.
the entire world is shaking, the entire world is crumbling. And maybe what we're seeing here is a genetic echo, which we're going to talk about later, but also maybe they're paying homage, right? Because these pyramids and these megalithic structures, we'll talk a little bit about Indonesia and stuff like that. They're paying homage to something that once was, yeah. And I think anything of this design is worthy of investigation, purely because it's an echo of the step pyramids in South America. It's an echo of the step pyramids in China and the ones that echo all around the world. But this is let's pretend that Hawaii is the top of a mountain, which it basically is. Once upon a time, that mountain was a mountain. What is underneath, but of course the level of devastation, if it just crashes beneath the waves in a minute or two.
Yeah.
Maybe this is an echo, man. This sort of stuff is an echo. Definitely worthy for sure.
Yeah, and it's a spot that probably is, look, I don't really know, but it's probably got some kind of ley line running through it, and it's an important spot. And
yeah,
we don't know what was there before the Hawaiians found it. So there's no written language in Hawaii, or basically all of Polynesia.
Yeah.
Here is on the Big Island, and this is another pretty good sized one. Here's another look at it here. Again,
that's interesting. Which way does that face? Do we have an orientation on that?
Yeah, so that would be facing west.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's a west facing. These are, but I should mention that these heiaus, we call them, these are reconstructed. Like, they were a mess, and they weren't this neat until more recent times when they restored them. So they might not be 100% accurate. Yeah, we don't know how. We don't know. This one here, I know, is what they call a Luakini heiau, where they actually sacrifice humans. So there's some energy at these spots, and I mean, like, I have a friend who said he used to run around one of these heiaus, and he had to take. And this is gross, but he had to take a shit while he was running, and he went by the bushes at one of these spots. I was like, bro, you can't just shit next to that energy site, you know. And sure enough, he had like a year of bad luck after that. And I mean, maybe
Really?
it's
Yeah, you can't
superstitious, but
disrespect a site like that.
no, man, you can't defecate next to the site.
But I
No,
wonder as well. I mean, it's because obviously we've got New Zealand cousins over here, and I like to have a bit of fun with them. And
yeah,
because I know and you know that the Polynesians ate the people that were on Hawaii first, right? And they did the same thing in New Zealand. They ate whoever was there
yeah,
before. So it makes me wonder: did they take like everything, like everybody else and everything else? Is this older than when they arrived? They knew it was a sacred site. They took it over and used it for their purposes. But a good spot's a good spot, right? I wonder whether
right.
this existed prior to them. Do they? And we have no history, so we don't know. Yeah.
We don't know, but we do know there was a shorter statured people here in here in Hawaii and in a lot of the South Pacific
Yeah.
that were
Same in New
later
Zealand.
killed off by bigger people. So my
Yeah, same in New
ancestry,
Zealand.
the little bit of Polynesian I do have, is actually of the smaller, shorter statured people in New
Really? Okay.
Zealand, which were known as the Morioris, not the
Yeah.
Maoris. The
Yeah.
remaining left people of that culture are on the Chatham Islands, off of New Zealand
Yeah.
ways.
They're in the South Island. They're down to the south in the smaller islands. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the builders of these things in Hawaii, even though they're not these are the most impressive ones we're showing you. A lot of them aren't very impressive, but apparently they were small people that built things overnight and passed rocks to each other in a long line and just built things overnight. So it's a
Sounds a bit
common
fairish,
occurrence.
doesn't it? Doesn't that sound a bit fairish as well?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So here we're moving away from Hawaii into the Marquesas Islands, which are kind of like the spiritual center of Polynesia. This is where you get tikis from. And this is not necessarily megalithic, but it shows otherworldly beings.
Yeah,
And
but it's 3D relief carving as well, right? I think, and again, we get stuck when we have monuments like the Great Pyramid in Baalbek and Teotihuacan. There's a comparison that happens because of the monumental understanding of those, but this is just as impressive, And these little tikis, the little monkey figures, type figures, they're all over the South Pacific. Yeah, similar figures, definitely.
yeah, and they're like little, I don't know, but here's another one here.
That looks fairly large. How big's that?
I don't know. I've never been to the Marquesas Islands, but I think it's
If you look
probably
if you look at the tree behind it, it gives you some sort of scale. It looks like quite a large one, made out of a granite or a harder rock.
Yep. And so I should mention that the Marquesas is where they think the first people from Hawaii came from. So are those littler people, as well as the Easter Island people. So they reckon that his name was Hotumatua, came from Marquesas and found Easter Island, both very isolated places. So the knowledge of these isolated places also makes me think, like, how did they know that these places were here? Yes, they were excellent navigators. The Polynesians were the best in the world, but still, to find these like Hawaii is the most isolated island chain in the world. Easter Island is one of the most isolated islands in the world.
In the world, I mean, absolutely,
yeah. Little speck in the middle of the ocean. So
I think Easter Island wasn't even that big. Even Easter Island, like they've done the 400-foot thing for Easter Island, it was quite a lot larger. However, it was still in the middle of nowhere, Easter Island, and the Hawaiian Island. I suppose the question is, how big was Mu? Were the Hawaiian Islands just a larger chain of islands, or were they part of the larger Mu/Lemuria? Have you heard about Lemuria and the reason it's named Lemuria?
I think I've come across it, and now I kind of don't. Yeah,
some dude basically made it up because he thought lemurs came from there.
Oh,
and it's actually Fubar, right? So Mu's probably a better.
Just Mu. Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, according to a lot of drawings, I mean, like I showed at the beginning there, Hawaii's included in that size. And there is here on this island a birthing spot. It's called the Kukani Loco Birthing Stone. They didn't put them in there. They're not very impressive, but they're where Hawaiians birthed the royalty, and they are aligned to Pleiades star system.
Yep.
And the people that were born there, I went to a lecture there, and they called the people there that were born there the people of the Hu, Hu. Well, the guy was saying, but he thinks really it's just a translation. Really, it was the people of the Mu. So it's an interesting thought. And one more thing about the Marquesas Islands, what we're seeing right now, is they're also really isolated. So Hawaii, Marquesas, Easter Island are extremely isolated islands. Like, this isn't even that close to Tahiti, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, again, we talk about catastrophe as well. So they obviously were part of the 70,000 year catastrophe because that was centered around the South Pacific.
Yeah.
But no one escaped the 13,000 year one again. You know, like the South Pacific got hit twice in 100,000 years. You know, like there's a massive. Again, we don't understand what a 400-foot tidal wave looks like. I know what a meter tidal wave looks like. I experienced that in Papua New Guinea, and it was the weirdest thing, man. It's like the ocean just picked itself up and threw itself at the edge of the island, and a meter of water just rushed through all the offices, over the pier, through the containers, and basically brushed up against the edge of the mountain that the island was on. And then it hung around for a minute or a little while, and then just receded. And then the ocean went back to normal. It's like, wow, that's pretty scary that the ocean can do that. You imagine something 100 times the size of that. You're doing nothing.
You think about like the reason. Another thing too is getting a little bit off subject, but not really. North America doesn't have too many megaliths, so you wonder if Australia, Australia, South Pacific, and North America were all hit harder, and maybe earlier, maybe like you say, twice as hard, maybe as the other parts of the world. That's why there's less to dig up, less things to find. I don't know.
Well, I wonder. Look, there's another side to that as well, where I think obviously. So I think so you got 70 odd thousand to 13,000. There's a 52,000 year difference there. Now, the story is cataclysm's coming, nothing we can do about it. Build a boat, get off the planet, depending on which text we're looking at. I wonder whether at certain times they moved knowledge from one place to the other, right? So they moved it to Egypt because Egypt is the center of the landmass, and maybe that was the most stable place.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summation of things too. You have to wonder why that was so important, and maybe it was more stable. Or
even the internal of South America. South America is massive, and the internal, all the pyramids and stuff inside that, sort of speaks to if we build everything in the middle of this big landmass, maybe we won't be as affected as we were last time. There's a learnings there as well, for sure. But these things are weird.
Most of the pyramids aren't coastal in Central and South America, no.
Mm-hmm. They're inland, right? Everything is inland. Why is that? That's interesting.
This is Tahiti right here. So now we're moving on to Tahiti. And Tahiti, this, I had some notes about this one. It's called Marai Pyramid, and was supposed to be much bigger, and many of the stones were used to build roads. So Captain Cook was the first to give a written description of this monument in 1769, writing that was a magnificent specimen of what he called Indian culture, back then. Indeed, the pyramid form does resemble the architecture of the Mayan temples. So this is just the ruins of something. They actually thought it was more important to build roads with these rocks. So, we're not looking at much now, but at one time it was.
Is that course down the bottom original, or is that rebuilt? We don't know.
That's rebuilt. I think that's rebuilt. Yeah, I think that's like a retaining wall to keep all that in. I haven't actually. So I have visited Tahiti, but I did not know this was here when I went. It's one of those things where you go somewhere and you realize, oh shit, I was only a little ways away from that, and I could have, but I didn't know. So, this part of the world's like that kind of. This is a drawing of what it was supposed to have looked like. So it was.
Classic step pyramid design.
Yeah.
Small stone step pyramid design. Yep.
Yep. resembling basically what Captain Cook said there. Now this is called Rapa Iti, and I found out about this just like kind of recently. It's not much known about it. It's more ancient than the native people there. They say that they didn't
Is
build
this
it.
Tahiti as well?
No, this is an island called Rapa Iti, which is
Rapa
south of
Iti.
south of Tahiti. So Iti means small. So
Mhm.
it must be really small because Rapa Nui, which is Easter Island, means big. Nui means big in most of the Polynesian cultures. So it's interesting. This must be a really tiny island, but it looks like this up close. So it's an interesting looking
There's
sight.
definitely some sort of mound, definitely some sort of step there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you always go back to the photo of Teotihuacan from the 20s or the 30s, and it seriously looks like a number of hills around here, mate. You know, like it really
Right.
does.
Yep. Yep. And that's why I went recently to check out a hill here that I thought might have been a pyramid, but I'll keep that under wraps for now. But yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Because you never know. Everything was buried, even like the Teotihuacan and I think the Chichen Itza ones were buried as well. And they look
Everything
like
was
that.
buried.
Yeah. China still has buried pyramids, and
Thousands, hundreds, thousands. Who knows? Yeah.
Bosnia. Now let's see what we're looking at here. This might be, this is also in Tahiti here too. So it's just remnants of a place. I
Mhm.
don't. Yeah. So and then we are in Tonga.
It's
So
Tonga.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting to me.
And
This
that's a solstice aligned structure, that one. And
is
they're
it.
proper magnets. Yeah, yeah. That's a solstice
Yeah.
aligned structure in Tonga. I believe winter solstice. And it does, the sun goes straight through there during probably could be even both, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely winter. Definitely winter solstice. It goes straight through that arch. And
Yep.
did you know the weights on that? I mean, we're looking, I'm trying to
Tons.
remember.
30
It's
to
like
40
10,
tons.
yeah, 30 to 40 tons on the side, and I think 10 to 20 across the top. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been there or no?
No, I haven't
No.
been
Yeah, I
there,
haven't either.
because look, I've taught and trained and worked with a lot of the Tongan boys over the years,
Yeah.
and one of the times that I got, I used to do longer form courses, and as a bit of a break, I'd do some megalith stuff just to be, make people have a bit of a different thing. And I had a Tongan bloke in the class, and he's like, "Hey, have you heard about this?" And and I've got a good photo of that as well. And that is a solstice alignment. Also celebrated. There's celebrations that surround that, and that is another one where no one knows. No one
Right.
knows.
No one
Yeah.
knows.
No one knows.
It's called Ha'a Manga'a Maui. So
Mhm.
they say that the demigod Maui put it together. It's always attributed to the gods.
Yeah.
The regular people didn't do it. They're 3 coral limestone slabs,
Mhm.
weighing or about 5.2 meters high, 5.8 meters long, and 1.4 meters wide. So it's a pretty good
Yeah.
size.
Definitely, you could definitely class these as megalith. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I know a lot of Tongans here in Hawaii, and they're some of the biggest people I've ever met. So
Absolutely.
I guess if there was going to be megalith builders still around on Earth,
Those boys could do it.
these boys might be able to do it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Man, these guys and Samoans too are huge people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a lot of Tongan Samoan listeners and brothers down here, and they're big boys. Yeah.
Yep, big boys. Yep, I got a lot of friends up here like that too, and it just they're naturally big. A lot of the Tongans here in Hawaii actually do build rock walls as front yard barrier kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common trade. So, but yeah. Anyway, that's a major megalith in Tonga.
Yeah, that's one definitely.
This is in Samoa, and this is the Pule Mele Mound. And it's constructed it hasn't even been really uncovered. It's just pretty recent. Basalt stones. It measures 65 by 60 meters and has a height of about 12 meters on the south edge of 7 meters. And the north edge, it appears to have been oriented. So this is oriented to the cardinal directions. So
yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So this has barely been uncovered, but they have found it's basically like a mound in Samoa.
Is that more LiDAR's uncovered that, or are you not sure?
Yeah, I think it is. I believe it is LiDAR. Yep.
Mm.
Yep. And now we are in Easter Island here. Easter Island being well known, and I've covered it so much on my show. I'm sure you've done a lot of, but it's just to, just to show how these things all go really far down. They're huge.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Easter Island is there's only 7 statues facing out. All the rest
Yeah.
of them face in. And we're going to come
Right.
back to that because Easter Island and Australia have a connection.
Yeah, let's do that.
Mm.
And I think, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're right.
Don't cut you off.
The only thing I would say about Easter Island as well is that, obviously you got the hands underneath the belly, and you've got that is also something that's echoed in the oldest carvings in Australia and paintings in Australia. That hands around the belly is very much echoed through here, and some of the symbology, the H that's found on Easter Island, that's found here as well. Also, Göbekli Tepe, there is a connection. There is a connection.
Yep, the hands around the belly is also in some, Mexico. There's some
American
carvings.
as well. Yeah,
Tiwanaku. Yeah. So this is maybe the thing that people focus less on in Easter Island. But this wall right here.
Wall.
Yeah. That's just kind of connects everything else. And you know what's interesting about Easter Island?
It's the polygonary masonry wall on Easter Island. That's because that's what it is, polygonary masonry.
Yep, it is. It's the exact same architecture you're going to find in Sacsayhuaman in Peru, Egypt. You find this polygonal masonry just about everywhere. What's interesting about Easter Island too is to mention. I talked about how there's not many Polynesian. There's no written language across Polynesia except for Easter Island. They have a written language known as Rongo Rongo, and I don't think that Polynesians were the first inhabitants. I think they found this place, and I don't even think it was maybe it was their writing. I really don't know, but they found these statues from the earlier world, guaranteed, and this rock wall. This is a before world for sure. Yeah.
It's curious that the Polynesian thing's very curious. It's like, where did they actually come from? Right, because they seeded and inhabited all these lands, and like I say, I like to have a bit of fun with the Maori boys and the Tongan boys. Like, yeah, come on, you ate the people that are on your island, and they're like, how do you know that? I said, I know my history. That's how I know. don't I know, and you know as well. Everybody knows, but where did they come from originally? Were they returning home? Like if these people were of Mu or Lemuria, and I think that's part of their origin stories as well, is that they got in the boats to return home, and then they seeded the islands as they went, and obviously the bravest made it to New Zealand.
Yeah. I met this one guy. His name was Foto, and he was a Maori guy, and he thought, and I don't remember how he connected this. This was years ago. It's not fresh in my mind, but he said that he thinks that the Polynesians were the lost tribe of Israel, and that they came, or was it Egypt? I think it's Israel, and that they came down this way, and his name means the same thing in Egypt. That's right. That's what he said. So he thinks that they were this tribe that took off and went to these lands. I thought it was an interesting connection. I'm kind of butchering it now because I'm not remembering it all, but anyway, but yeah, so we don't know. A lot of people say, like, traditional history says they came from places like Taiwan, moved down from Malaysia, and then kind of made their way this way, possibly, but it's just, we don't really know. We fully don't know.
They're very different. They're almost we talk, everybody's human obviously, but they're definitely a separate race. Because those, like as you say, some of those boys, they're regularly 6.5 feet tall, barely fit through a bloody door type thing. You know what I mean? Like they're big boys, and the women as well are quite large. Like just from a stature standpoint, they're different. Whereas you don't find many Asian races that have that size. Like they don't. Whereas those guys do. It's interesting.
Well, also, I should mention that, like here in Hawaii, the first king of Hawaii was 7'6" or 7'8" foot tall.
Wow.
So the average male in his day was about 6'5", 7 foot. So, these people are almost giants. Like maybe they have some of these seeds of the giant races on the
Well,
planet.
this is this. We talk about a scale too. Like, I mean, I'm 5'11". I don't know how tall you are, but
Same. Yeah.
And I'm thinking when you talk Tongan Samoan, I've got a really good brother of mine, Jackson, and he's 6'5", 6'6", every part of 3 or 4 foot wide. Like, he's a massive dude.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember one day, it's a longer story, but he basically picked me up in a bear hug. I helped him out with something, and those boys, they get happy, you know what I mean? And he just picked me up like I was nothing. Like I was nothing. He just picked me up and put me in a bear hug, and I'm like, I'm disappearing into this dude, and it's like, when we talk about giants, maybe they weren't 20 foot. I mean, again, at 5'11", I've seen a 6'10" dude, and that is massive. Like, he's a massive basketball dude. I'm like, oh my God, if I was to tell that story, if you run into a person that's, 1.5 foot taller than you, they are giant. They are giant,
Right.
And this is there is a actually, the Brothers of the Serpent did a 3-part series on giants. It's worth a listen, Leumas. They had a guy in that was doing giant stuff. Really worth a listen. Yeah.
Let me write that down because that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. 3 parts here. Brothers of the Serpent. They're pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. I've seen them around. All right. Well, let's move on here. Now, this is what we call Micronesia. This is in Guam. These are called the latte stones, and these are quite huge. Now, they kind of look small here, but they're definitely carved out of rock. But they're
look at that. They almost look a bit dolmen-like. Oh, there you go. That's the quarry, is it? Okay.
Yeah. This is
wow.
Precision megaliths here. I mean, and so here in Guam, there's supposedly these stones are made as supports for housing. But why don't we see the rest of Micronesia having this architecture? It's just like these archaeologists make this basically make this shit up. I mean, I could make up a better lie, Wow. No, there's some. This is major, like laser precision. Look at that curve on there. That guy's
absolutely. It's almost very. I wonder if you got and again, obviously it's unfinished. It's in the quarry. Yeah. However, how perfect of a circle is that already? And also, see what I'm seeing here, Leumas, is evidence of unfinished work, right? Because this is the other part of the megalith story, is that everywhere across the world that was building these megalithic types things, there's evidence that they just walked away, right? They just up and left.
Or cataclysm happened.
Oh, well, that's it. Why did they up and leave? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you look at the unfinished obelisk in Egypt, the unfinished statues in Easter Island, the unfinished work in Baalbek, Lebanon. I mean, it's like they all just left. And, of course, they found woolly mammoths with food in their mouth, flash frozen. So we know Earth can change just like that, In
an instant,
Yeah, so cataclysm, it was good that you mentioned cataclysm at the beginning, because that's really maybe what we need to constantly be reminded of. This is all wiped away because of a cataclysm. Yeah. Now, you may have seen this one before.
I was gonna hope you were gonna bring up non-Madal, because this is amazing. Because the basalt stuff as well, that's actually echoed down here, using basalt to make structures in the stone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and you can also kind of see that somewhere else in the Gudong Padang,
all through Indonesia as well.
Yeah. That's what it reminds me of. And these are huge. Of course, I've never been there, but like this is in Pompeii.
Well, this is again in the middle of nowhere. That's a tiny little
Yeah, and the native people there, they're kind of like superstitious of it. They don't go near it. Like, they think it's haunted. And the average weight of each stone is 5 tons, with some weighing as much as 25 tons.
Thousands and thousands of them. Yeah.
And of course, they go underwater. So that means that this is half buried underwater. So the sea level
it's a previous build.
Non-Madal.
Yeah.
Now, this is Malden Island. Nobody lives here. It's uninhabited. It's about 1,500 miles south of us here in Honolulu, and it is got a lot of. It's got like, I think, what is it, like 25 of these temples on it. The island has no surface water, and at max could support 200 people, and
Wow.
it's got some statues and some rock work, because you can see behind it. It even has roads like this that lead right into the ocean, which echoes to me a little bit about the cart ruts, which are in Malta and other places in the world. Yeah. But it's
That's
a network.
weird. I never heard of one. There you go. You taught me something new today. That's interesting.
Yeah, this is a little place that nobody lives, and you can't just go there. It's in Micronesia. I don't think it's too far from the equator line. Somewhere around there, the Line Islands, which are near the equator. It has a network of roads made out of large basalt slabs fitted tightly together. Yeah, and the roads go into the ocean. So it's a very mysterious place in the middle of nowhere with like 25 of these type of
weird structures.
temples. Yeah, these slabs. And what for? If you were surviving here with a place with no surface water, why would you even think of building a temple there? Because
it's obviously leftovers. Yeah, it's obviously leftovers for sure.
Leftovers for sure. Now you might be familiar with this one. This is
New Zealand.
New Zealand, the Kaiwanava Wall. And
around Lake Taupo, beautiful area.
Yeah, I was near there. Another one of those places where I was near there, but I didn't know it even existed at the time. This was like 2015. I just had no idea this was even a place. So, and this echoes similar to what they're finding now in Montana. The Sage Wall looks a lot like that, as well as Sacsayhuaman. And
large polygonal stones being definitely
Yep. And that I guess that completes my South Pacific tour there. But we have a lot of little places left over of cultures or of things that don't match the architecture of these cultures. So
only really small echoes as well, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there's some grand massive part of evidence. And this is the thing. I think echoes is the right point. I mean, obviously, a lot of those ones, you would think that they would be. I mean, some of that stuff has got to be so old. Like the day that we can date stone is everything's going to change in an instant.
Yeah. Whenever the hell we could do that, I don't know how, but yeah. I don't even trust modern day carbon dating, to be honest.
No, I don't either. No, I don't either at all. No, mainly because petrified stings and stuff like that. I don't trust it either. And what bit of carbon are you basing it on?
Yeah, there's a lot of laws there.
The carbon that you based it on before you did your measurements. Yeah, it's interesting, man. And like the one you missed out on. There's some stuff in Indonesia where there's some stuff in Indonesia where they still make megalithic statues, very similar to the monkey statues.
I know what you're talking about.
So my wife just recently spent some time in Indonesia, and she did a massive temple walk. And there's these temples that are up this ladder, these stairs, 5,000 stairs. And it's a whole big process of, releasing. She went there for a bit of a retreat type of thing. But this is in the middle of the jungle. And I'll send you some photos. Unbelievable. And like tiger mythology, serpent mythology, very much looking like that, the tiki statues and stuff like that. And there's entire provinces still in Indonesia that echo these building techniques. And they make these big, massive stone structures just because that's what they've always done. It's when we think about echoes, it's interesting, right? So I suppose I better take over, mate. Where are we going to go? We're going to go down under. So this is the thing about down under is this. I put these slides together. It's going to change very shortly, right? This is going to expand in a large way very shortly. But this is a very good snapshot if you want to chuck it up on the screen for the awesome people. And this is obviously Australia, right? And you can see here, this is where I am, and about there in Brisbane. And it's unbelievably large, Australia.
Yeah.
We don't quite grasp how, a lot of people don't grasp how big it is. I remember way back in the day when I was working in oil and gas, we took the office ladies out to the rig. The rig was about 7 hours west. Now here's Brisbane. This is where we were. 7 hours west is about here. You know what I mean? And I remember one of the little Asians that was in, she's like, oh, we must have driven halfway across the country. And I showed her on a map that we literally wasn't even a centimeter on the map that we could see.
Right.
So we don't understand the depth and actually truly how large Australia is. And, when it comes to, here we go. When it comes to evidence, there's a mixed bag. And again, this is going to expand a lot shortly, right? So I've got a number of field trips coming up that are going to expand this research for sure. Now, I dubbed this the preparation stone. Now, this was found on what they call Jaki Kundu, or the Gympie Pyramid. Unfortunately, the left-hand side of the Gympie Pyramid has now been destroyed. So basically, the reason I call this the preparation stone, man, is that they have there's echoes of a thing, and this is out of South America as well, where they say they had a way to melt stone, right? They had, and basically you combined 3 ingredients, and you could melt stone. Now, I believe this is an echo of that. This is and if we look, so the next slide here, we can actually sort of see the striations where this liquid has actually melted the stone, right? So I think they've mixed it in this part, right?
It looks like melted lava almost.
Yes, it does. So I believe they've mixed the solution here. And one of the ingredients is prickly pear. Now, prickly pear is not native to Australia, but on the
cactus,
Jaki Kundu,
right?
Yeah, like a cactus, yeah. But on the Jaki Kundu site, it was everywhere. Prickly pear was everywhere. And that is one of the ingredients. I don't know what the other two are, mate, because if I did know, we'd be melting stone in the backyard.
Right.
So I think that's where they prepared it, right? And you can see this stone isn't small. I sort of put my hatchet on the top to, give a reference marker. And you can see this is where I think they sharpen their tools, man. Right? If you can see the striations dragging that way and that way, right?
Yeah.
So they're sharpening some sort of tool there, and then they make a test cut. Right. So I think what they've done is probably, this is the story. They've probably put the solution along the top here, waited for it to fracture the rock, and then they've cut the rock out. And there's my Bigfoot there. So, that's a 10.5 boot for reference. And this is what I call the preparation stone. Probably one of the most interesting things that I found at the Jaki Kundu site. And you can see that something has melted that, right? And then they've used, again, look like they sharpen their tools, and then they've made a test cut, which is why I called this the preparation stone. And that was a very, very interesting thing. Now, I mean, the Jaki Kundu site, here's just some of the stuff that I found. Like this, there was pieces cut out of the stone. Right. And again, that's sort of put my knife there for size reference. And I dug that out. I mean, look at that. That is like it's a cut section.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
And the curious thing about this, right, if we magnify into here, the cut kept going past the stone. Right. So they've obviously,
it's like a saw mark almost.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. Almost. Right. But if they had this solution that could melt the stone, they're obviously going to, I think they were playing with this solution, whatever it was, at this site. And that is one of the stories that was going around there.
No,
that was something
just to ask though, like, so the people did the Aboriginal cultures know about this, or do they talk about this, or is this something pre those people anyway, or do we know?
Yeah, look, that's an interesting question. It's a much larger political / tribal question. So, when I went there these photos were taken. I was helping what I thought at the time was the Kabi people, or Kabi. Come to find out, there is multiple tribes that identify themselves as Kabi. And yeah, as I say, this site now has a highway running through the left-hand side of it. Now, majority of the front of it and the pictures that I'll show you in a little while are still intact, and the because it's not a pyramid, right? You look at it from the front, and it does have a pyramid shape, but it's like a bit of land. It's a ridge line that ends in like a pyramid shape. And yeah, some people claim a lot of things pretty much with the bridge going through and the works they did on the highway, that a lot of those things are not true. Yeah, it's a very longer story. I don't want to get into the political stuff, but yeah, some people believe something, some people believe it's nothing, right? I think it's one of those echoes that I think was before here. You know, it should be said that there was gold in Tutankhamun's tomb that is said to come from this region.
Interesting.
From the area, right?
Wow.
And yeah, to put it into context, look, I'll take you there because we're going to go and see we probably won't be able to get to here, but I can take you to the polygonal masonry, which I'll show you. Gympie is, well, it's just north of the Sunshine Coast, man. It's going to be quicker for you than it is for me. Yeah. It's not like it's half an hour out from the Sunshine Coast. This was a piece that I just found lying in the grass, and that looks cut to me.
Yeah, it does.
Looks shaped, at least. You know what I mean? Like, it looks shaped. I know stone does break in right angles at times, and different types of stone does. I have seen that at the place where the imprint is, but not this type of stone. All right, it's a different type of stone for sure. And this was said to be an old photo of the summit of the Gympie Pyramid. It's not. All right, this is one of the things that the people that we were with hung their hat on, because there is two big stones. There's more Gympie photos, but this is just a bit of a snapshot.
Yeah.
But there is two big stones that look like they've fallen over up on the top. There was talk of a stone circle that was behind the top of the ridge line as well. However, yeah, everyone says that this was the top of the Gympie Pyramid. If we go into here, and I'll, you know, as I say, when they finish the bridge, we'll be able to see some of this stuff. But see this hill line behind?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist there. That's not true. This isn't it. I don't know where this is. It might be Australia, but it's not Gympie.
Interesting. They say that, huh?
Yeah. And we can see here, this is an aerial photo, right? And you can see the bushland behind there, but it's not it. It's sort of, this is a high point. You're looking down, and you can sort of see the triangular nature, the front of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is these stone walls that are lined up as they go up. It's like terraces. Okay, and you can sort of see one there. There's another one up here, and they go all the way up. There's another one there. There's another one there, and they go all the way up to the top. Now, the generic story is that they were, because they do terraced farming here. A lot of the Italians came here and did terraced farming, and there's many, many examples of that.
Okay.
The Western story is that this was an Italian farmer making olives or wine, grapes or olives. Look, maybe not. I'm open to interpretation with this site, especially after, you know, everything that happened surrounding it. However, these photos here, they were definitely messing with something, right? This is different. Yeah. I think this stuff here, this preparation stone and this stuff here, even that could be different to this terracing. This terracing may be farming. I'm open to that possibility. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got some more photos of that. But again, we're just sort of doing a good snapshot of down under here, because part of UTC version 3 is I'm going to do a detailed Australian show, because there's a lot of different things that need to be strung together. And there's a few things that I need to go and see that I need to string together as well. yeah, these terraces go up to the top. There's a few little pieces at the top, little cuts and stuff, but that's the main and the best that we got from that site.
And
The
this is still
curious,
Gimpy, right?
this
Or
is
is
still
it?
Gympie.
Okay,
No,
okay.
this
All
is
right.
still Gympie. This is all one. This is all one site. Yeah,
Yeah.
all this stuff is all one site.
I'd really like to know where that black and white photo is if it's not Gimpy, the one that's right before this
I would
one.
love to know as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I would really love to know as well.
That's
Yeah.
something for sure. Whatever it
Mm.
is.
Yeah, they reckon it's Gympie, but it's not. If you stand on top of the hill, it's not. It's not
Okay.
Gympie.
But this is Gimpy here?
That's Jinky Kundu. And you can sort of see the ridge line running this way.
Yeah.
Right. You see the ridge line running along the top, and then it comes up to a peak, and there's a pyramidal front to it, which is why they would call. I think this is sort of more this bit here they call the pyramid, and that's where some of the stuff is. But again, it's pyramidal shaped. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, and that's all it really is, and that's quite high. Like that would probably be 100 meters, 120 meters high from the base to the top. It's a little bit of a trek to get up there. Yeah. And now this is Gympie as well. And this is the anomaly. This is polygonal masonry walls at Gympie. Now, see that picture?
Yeah.
I took that photo, and I'll take you to this exact spot. And I posted this on Instagram many years ago. And I'm like, pop quiz, where's this? And it's actually one of my most liked Instagram posts to this day. And everyone's like, South America, all the classics, right? And then I go, Gympie, Australia, Queensland. And everyone's like, what? Now, these stones, and I will take you to here. This wall is surrounding a church, right? Now, the story behind this wall is that it was moved from somewhere to the church as a Depression era project. Okay. Now the church and look, there is Masonic origins to do with this as well. There is a number of different things that, it could be. This led me down a different rabbit hole where how early did the Masons come here? There's a whole sand terracotta church building thing that is across Australia that is, I think, echoes of a certain time frame. I do wonder with this polygonal masonry wall, did the Masons build this just for some fun? Some older Masons that had the idea and had the secret. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, the story we were told by the Kabi is that this wall was taken from here.
Oh.
Okay. They say that these stone, like these 3 or 4 course stone, they were retaining walls that this wall was from. Now, there's a few holes in that theory as to the size of the wall and, all this sort of stuff. There's a few holes in that theory. And one of the other guys I've had on, Colin, he did an investigation and he said the Masons did it, which I'm open to that possibility.
Yeah. Huh. But they knew polygonal masonry then, if that's the case. And there's no mortar, right? There's no mortar?
Nope.
Yeah. Tightly
and
fit.
The thing is, you can tell, some of these pieces are unreal.
Wow.
Look, they're probably, the biggest blocks are probably, I don't know, 500 mil, couple of feet long, couple of, foot by two or three. And they're about, the depth of them is to between 30 and 40 centimeters. So they're not like massive, but it's look at that. I mean, some of this stuff is unbelievable. And you can see the accuracy that it once was, right? So if this wall was, the story is, regardless, that this wall was taken apart from somewhere, moved to the church site and used as it goes around a church, right? And there's a whole heap of triptych influences around the church as well.
Yeah.
So, like some of these stones, when you start looking at this wall in detail, it's like that stone needs to be pulled out and flipped over. Like that's the wrong way. But if it was just a bunch of blokes that needed work in the Depression, then, yeah. And what's curious about these two, when I looked at them, is the striations in the stone. Right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are like chisel marks.
Yeah, chisel marks or something like that, or were they using the the stone cutting acid and then chiseling them out, or I don't know, right?
Right.
And there's a few, and the thing around Gympie, there's this wall, but then there's a few try-hard walls, right? There's all sorts of little bits of polygonal masonry walls found in and around Gympie. And it echoes to me is that if Gympie was a gold region, is that an echo from someone else completely? You know what I mean? Like, could it be a South American influence? Could it be an Egyptian influence? Could it be, who knows, right? It's an interesting question.
It looks like almost it went through an earthquake a little bit. You guys don't get many earthquakes in Australia, but
not really.
The way that things are sort of spaced apart, like they were meant to be a little bit tighter in some spots. But
well, I attributed that to the fact that it's been pulled apart.
Yeah, that makes
right?
sense.
It would have, look, it would have been moved by horse and cart or ox and cart, bull, and would have been. It was on the back of. It's 1930, so it wouldn't have been vehicles. It probably would have been horse and cart, literally. So, how? And some of them fit really tightly. Look, that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faced stone, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are holding that stone in place. Like, it is really true polygonal masonry. And it's it's an anomaly, dude. Like, it's the only one so far that I've found in Australia. There's a bit of a cryptic story behind it where, as I say, it was moved here and used as a Depression era project. Where was it moved from? No one really knows. Again, but there was Masonic influence there for sure.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, if there's some, we may talk about that later, but if there's some secret societies that understand this story, it would be Masons. It would be any sort of closed society that's not going to share it with us. That's for sure.
That's true. Yeah. If the secrets are sharing, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of go. So one part of a strange story, we have to talk about Australite Tektite. Okay, now Australite Tektite is actually part of the origin story, the indigenous origin story of the Aboriginals, saying they were seeded from the Palladians. Now, the curious thing is that even if you go to the NASA website, is that 720,000 years ago, there was some crystalline object in orbit, and it basically fell into the planet. Okay, Australite tektites generally look like this, like button types. And the reason they look like this is that they didn't have any velocity when they fell into the planet Leumas. They just sort of, and the reason they have that curved shape is that's the atmosphere melting them. Now, the story goes is that, the Palladians were above Australia. They were modifying us because they couldn't live in our atmosphere, and then they were at war. Someone blew the ship up, and the ship crashed into Australia. Now, the curious thing about tektite, I believe this is tektite. Now, I didn't. These are stones that the Strongs have down here in Australia, and this is quite amazing. There's the magnifying glass. If you look at that, right, that has actually been made in a single pass into stone. Something like a soldering iron is the only way I can think about it like that. And that A or P or whatever you are has been made in a single pass. Now, it's quite amazing. And this stone here,
how big are these in real life, or do you know?
That's in the palm of my hand.
Okay.
That stone, that's in the palm of my hand, that stone. Same as this one. They're not very big at all. Now, the curious thing about this one is, that's not what we want. Not that. This is some weird substance in here, right? It's like some sort of glue or something. And apparently they have had some of this tested, and it's of unknown origin, right? And this is like a marker stone These angles have been matched, and apparently there's another stone somewhere in it's Canada or somewhere in North America somewhere, and there's been another stone found like this. Okay, and they're very strange. However, yeah, these are some stones that I felt and held that were had a very strange origin, and I do believe they're tektite. Now, again, tektite's normally found in button shapes. However, the Australite tektite boundary we can see there, right? So 800,000. There's three major tektites. One is found in North America, one is found off the coast of Africa, but the Australasian one is massive.
Yeah.
And again, it is not fought against a. Was that a cat?
Yeah. I knew I shouldn't have left the door open, but anyway,
That's all right.
Part of the stream.
Yeah. Basically some big crystalline structure fell into Australia about 800,000 years ago, and that is the creation myth that the Indigenous tell, and they say it's the Palladians, right? Which is the one, it's either the Palladian or the Orion story. Doesn't matter where you are around the planet. Yeah. However, this is probably the most interesting thing that Australia ever had. Unfortunately, it was bulldozed in 1946. This is Australia's Stonehenge. Now, what we see here is original copies of the survey documents that were done in the 30s. Now you can see how elaborate this was. These are literal survey documents that were done. Now, a good friend of mine, and Richard Patterson is the guy, he made this computer simulation up as well, because it wasn't straight like that. You can see it was like a big, massive arch.
Yeah, right? With two stone circles on each side.
Two stone circles on each side. Now, by all reports, if this thing still existed today, it was older than Australia's Stonehenge. And these coloured dots here were crystals, massive crystals.
Wow.
And
where
what's
did those
curious,
end up?
Yeah, exactly. And what's curious as well is that down in Mullumbimby, where this is a place called the Crystal Castle, and it's one of the best, some of the best crystals are found around that area. And the Indigenous of that area have always been known for trading crystal. And there was massive crystalline structures. And again, Australia's Stonehenge, Richard Patterson, he's a very eccentric, lovely brother of mine. However, he manifested these, found them behind a cabinet in the Mullumbimby Historical Society back in 2014. And they're unbelievable. I've got more documents. There's symbology, there's language attached to this as well. Richard's given me permission to use his research, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And look, the story as to why it was destroyed. Well, the English did a pretty good job, Leumas. They did a very thorough job of everything. And basically what they would do, right? So let's say you stole a pig in the late 1700s trying to feed your family. How dare you try and feed your family, Leumas? You're going on a ship, mate. You're on a ship to Australia, right? But when you get to Australia, you've got time served, and that's time served generally building the communities and the cities, Sydney in particular. But if you're a good boy, mate, I tell you what we'll do. We'll give you some land. Give you some land to look after for pittance. And you can have a lot of land for nothing, pretty much. However, unfortunately, if you find anything of Indigenous cultural significance, we're going to take that land back off you.
Oh.
So basically, anything that they destroyed it themselves because they didn't want their land taken. And whilst that's annoying, I can sort of understand where they were coming from. The story they'd been told about the Indigenous down here was completely incorrect, and as to how advanced they were and everything else like that. And they were trying to save their land. And basically, this is now on a dairy farm in northern New South Wales, and I can point you to where the mound is, because this is also an artificial mound, a man-made mound that
You can
this used
see
to sit
that,
on
yeah.
top of. And I can take you. I've got a photo of a distance photo of it. The family allowed Graham Hancock's been to this site. They did some testing and stuff, some digging and bits and pieces. I think it was back in 2016 or 17. And yeah, inconclusive because of the fact there's just nothing left. They did find some interesting bits of stone. There's another
Recreation.
computer model of it. And yeah, the mound in real life is not as steep as that, but Richard was sort of playing with animation.
Okay.
Did a pretty good job, I think. However, what was, man? You know what I mean? What is, you know,
How about ground penetrating radar? Has they done that there? Or
no, they haven't done ground penetrating radar. They dug into a couple of the mounds and they found different bits of stone and bone and stuff, but nothing. There was nothing of real significance. Richard was the last person to speak with the man who actually destroyed them. And yeah, there were still stones lying on the ground at that stage. Big, and again, mainly because this is stuff that's found around Mullumbimby. So this is more of that basalt type stuff, right?
Yeah.
These are the basalt columns. And this is within 5 kilometers of Mullumbimby. There's standing stones everywhere. On the roundabout, on the way in, mate, when we go for a drive down there, on the roundabout into Mullumbimby, there's standing stones on the roundabout. You know, they're found everywhere. And there's more than one story when they put highways and stuff like that in around that area of them bulldozing standing stones. There's a lot of echoes. Look, the one on the right-hand side here, the bottom right, don't get too excited about that. No, you don't get too excited about that. That's that was man-made in the 80s, 90s, into the 2000s. However, I've walked that property. There's a lot of other photos I've got it, and it's called Tiagra. Now, some of them stones definitely have been put up artificially, and you can see that there's like mortar and, you know, just modern technology that's concrete and mortar holding them together. But there's probably 3 or 4 stones, and we spent a day, me and Richard, walking around there. There's probably 3 or 4 stones that look very, very, very old. Unfortunately, the guy who owns the property at Tiger is a bit of a recluse now. He was trying to create some peace and love community through stone circles and bits and pieces, and it didn't really work out for him. He attracted some interesting people, as those sorts of things do. However, yeah, it's an amazing property. I think at least 3 or 4 of those stones were there to start with, right?
Yeah.
And basically, Richard sat down with him once and had a conversation with him and asked him, it's like, why did you build all this stuff? He goes, I didn't. He goes, where did you get all the stones from? He goes, the stones are already here. I just stood them back up. So his property was littered with this stuff, and he said, look, they told me to stand them back up. That's basically the story that he tells about it. Which
they look like Avebury hinge.
Yes. Yeah. It's more of this basalt stuff. Yeah. Again, more, and then they're just in random places. That's on the side of the road, man. There's just standing stones on the side of the road. Not in front of properties or anything else like that. They're just in random places. I got excited about this one. That one's like a big, massive one. But then I found out later that one had been stood up by the person who owned the property.
Yeah,
because I thought, oh, wow, that's a massive one. But no. I do believe that there is some standing stones still yet to be found in the bush surrounding Mullumbimby and Mount Warning and stuff like that. And that is part of the UTC version 3. We're going to get down there and have a look. Because I think,
that's cool.
Yeah, there's some stuff down there for sure.
Wow. Yeah.
Here's a very old photo. This is from the late 1800s, and just standing stones just found in the middle of nowhere. Again, these are probably not very big. I suppose where would we put? They're probably a meter and a half, a ton ton and a half maybe, easily moved by people, numerous people. However, who put them there? Why are
Yeah.
these standing stones just found in the middle of nowhere? Now there's talk of other standing stone sites in northern New South Wales, both inland and on the coastland. But because of the way the Australian government deals with this sort of stuff, they literally just destroy it. Now, the systematic destruction of this stuff down here, it's systematic. Like it's hard not to see some sort of nefarious angle. The deeper you dig, it's like if anyone has ever mentioned anything that might suggest that the Indigenous were either more advanced or they had standing stones or anything else like that. There's been plenty of anecdotal evidence and decent written evidence, especially of early explorers and stuff like that. It's just stricken from the record, right? It is really like they're trying to hide something down here. You can't help but get that feeling after a while, and when you continue to investigate, they're trying to hide whatever the real truth is.
Can you think of one particular agency? Did you say, I don't know, you said some agency or was it DUOD? What did you call it?
It would just be the Australian government, man. There's
yeah.
a couple of different agencies that operate within that. The land councils is definitely one, but they because of the massacre that the Redcoats did to the Indigenous down here, which is something that is hard to express and contain. I mean, they did it everywhere in the world, but they were particularly brutal down here. I had a very dark idea that is probably true. However, the biggest massacres is probably where the sacred sites were, right? Because they would have fought to the last man and woman for their sacred sites. And there's many, many of them up and down the East Coast. And then the British systematically destroyed whatever was left. I mean, you got to understand is that again, this is more anecdotal evidence from explorers, but they came across like stone hut villages, basic, that you walk over the top of a hill and it's a prairie, and there's obviously 2 or 3 different types of wheat that are growing. And you got to make the trees down here, man, as well. There was redwood trees and all sorts of gum trees that literally 20, 30, 40 foot across, just forests and forests and forests of them. And they killed them all. Like they'd cut them all down. Like you can find stumps. I've seen a few stumps. I've got photos of a couple of stumps that are of the smaller trees. But when you see the Aussie bushland, and obviously, you'll see a bit more of it in the not too distant future, mate. That is not how it was. That is not what it was. The systematic destruction and alteration of not only the landscape, but anything that existed was pretty total.
They were like the anti-life committee that came into Australia.
Oh man. But see, the thing is that there's stories of in explorers coming across Indigenous that could speak English. There's stories of explorers coming across Indigenous that were tan with red hair. It's said that because again, I think the Masons came here first, right? If you look at the timeline, so we're 1788, right? You guys were in 1776 independence, but we were 1788. That's the year that Australia was created, right? Or the first fleet landed or whatever. I can't remember exactly. Okay. But if you think about what was going on in Europe at the time as well, that's during the time of when the not the Masons, the money people, the jar Masons. What am I talking? I've lost it. It's gone. People are yelling at us through the microphone. The people who funded the Masons basically built Switzerland, the Red Cross. What am I?
Oh, you're talking about the Knights.
Knights Templar. Yeah.
Templar. Yeah.
The Templar Knights and the remnants of the Templar Knights and the Masons were building all the but basically during that time frame, the Templar and the Masons had been in bed for a long time. All the Gothic cathedrals, the church found out they had all Masonic influences, like the Flower of Life and all the symbology that's in these massive Catholic churches. They found that out in the 1700s. I think that's the Friday the 13th, isn't it? Isn't that they massacred them on the Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that the Masons escaped to Australia, right? I mean, again, this is an older slideshow. There's so many other things that need to be added to this. I sent photos of you of the Masonic temple I found in the middle of Western Queensland. The massive, there's a number of different things, and there's stories that the Masons came here looking for something, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, right? It's fascinating, and it sort of lends to an idea that I had a little while ago, which was as far as the Masonic stuff, but also, so the last cataclysm hit in the north, right? The last cataclysm hit North America. And across the north as well, like into Europe and stuff like that. If you believe some of the things that are being found, the Younger Dryas boundary, I suppose, is what we're talking about. The evidence of the Younger Dryas boundary. Where is the safest place, dude? Australia is
southern hemisphere. Yeah, Australia is the biggest landmass, really,
in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
So what if whatever secrets were left behind were brought down here? Now, the thing we don't say, what I didn't mention about Australia's Stonehenge, right? So there's two important points here that probably will be expanded on a later date. However, number one, there's a river that runs not far from here, and they found Egyptian anchor stones in that river.
Yes, I've read about that.
Yeah. And these 7 stones here in the middle, you see, I'll magnify this again for us. These 7 stones in the middle.
Yeah.
You draw a straight line and this is right on the coastline too, right? You draw a straight line from these 7 stones across the ocean. The 7 sisters of Easter Island are looking at Australia's Stonehenge. Like it is a straight line.
Yeah.
From this site to Easter Island, and it's directly the 7 sisters of the Easter Island are looking at the edge of Australia, and that's a mind blower, right? That's like, holy crap, how did that? That again, that's kudos to Richard for that, because that's his work. However, he's happy for me to share it.
That's a great nexus point right there between those. Yeah.
And also the Egyptian stuff's going to come back later on. And there's marker stones, but also around the area, but lost in the mangroves is like, in some of the things you see the spiral stones, like only small ones, but they're made in a big spiral. You see some of that stuff in America with the mound builders and stuff like that. There's things like that. There's serpent. Serpents winding through the mangroves, and sets of spiral stones. And again, no one knows, man. No one really knows. Yeah. Because again, unfortunately, the indigenous were wiped out completely and thoroughly.
Yeah.
So we're going to go from the Stonehenge, which again is just mysterious, but I think there's more answers to be found down there. There's more answers to be found.
Absolutely, with all those standing stones. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more around. This is the original Unlocking the Code discovery that I'm going to take you to.
The imprint,
right? Now, we can see here I've got some measuring. I went and did a proper research expedition on this one a little while ago, where we took some tools and we took proper measurements. And again, you can see on the right-hand side here, it is a perfect right angle.
Yeah.
Now, this stone that the imprint has been cast into, we're just going to say cast or printed into, is a sandstone. I sent a sample of this sandstone down to a geologist in Melbourne, and he analysed the stone, and he said that stone melts at 2,000 plus degrees, and whatever this thing is or whatever it is has been imprinted into that stone. And when we asked the geologist what he thought it was, as usual, I don't know. Right? No one knows. And I've sent, honestly, dudes, I've sent this picture and pictures of this imprint. Oh, I sent him these photos as well. So here's the imprint here. You can see it in the top right-hand corner.
Oh, it's right there. Okay.
Yep. Right. And he said that this has definitely been cut.
Yeah.
Right. So is that an imprint of a jig or something like that? You know what I mean? Is it a jig or a mounting, or who knows? Right. And there's weird stuff all over this site as well. However, yeah, the imprint is a mystery, man, and it's just echoes, right? But the thing about the imprint, and that we found it completely by chance. I was with Martin. He's been on the podcast a few times, and we went out to spend a day with the Jinnabara tribe. And part of going to spend the day with the Jinnabara was to go to it's the axe grinding place. Now, all around this stuff here, there's all these axe grinding grooves where they would sharpen their axes or sharpen their spear points. And it was generally considered that this was a meeting place of multiple tribes because it sits on the river, it sits in the mountains. And basically, not only was it a meeting place, but it was a place where everybody was welcome. Like, you couldn't fight there, right? So you can come here to wash your clothes, let the kids have a swim, sharpen your blades. You know, it was a neutral ground for all the tribes in the area. And the road that goes through the mountains that we will drive on to get to this spot was the indigenous track. So basically, they took the indigenous track and just made it wider.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you call those odzes, the axes in down there, or no? Is that a Polynesian thing?
No, it's a Polynesian thing. It's just basically, it would just be. He said a word. The problem with indigenous language is there's not an overall language. There's many different dialects, but basically he described this place as a meeting place, where you were free and, you know, everyone could come, men, women, children. Now, if there was a nexus point, which obviously that, you know, and the thing is, this is in the Glasshouse Mountains, which you would have seen when you've come down here a couple of times. Those unbelievable. You've climbed Gun, right? So you've seen. Yeah. It's in that general area, right? If you were at Gun, you were within half an hour of this spot.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
The last time I went there, the imprint was entirely covered up. We had to clean it up because I showed the guy there, the indigenous elder that was with us, and he's like, I don't know. He'd never even seen it before, right? He'd never even noticed it. But, I mean, look at that. It's strange.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
It's Upart. That's what that is. That is an out-of-place artifact. It should not be there. And again, you know, UTC's had quite a reach over the years. As soon as I took a photo of this, I sent it to everyone. Like, you know, I sent it to you. I've sent it to Laura. I've sent it anyone that we know that's in the research space in our megalith stuff. I've sent it to them, and everyone comes back and goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
I sent it to Muhammad Ibrahim. And he doesn't know. Like, he's like, wow, what? You know, the Egyptologist. He's like, what is that? I'm like, that's what I'm asking you.
There is a few artifacts in the Egyptian Museum that look like, and actually stuff that's just out laying in the open that look like, sort of like this, where like it's almost like a saw mark went in and just sort of went out. Like, I mean, I don't know what to say if this is a saw mark, but
To add to the research that I did into this, so there's a Bushy is a stonemason who lives in Victoria, and he's been a stonemason for 20 plus years. He's made it his profession, his business, and he knew the geologist. So I sent samples and all the photos, all the field photos with measurements and everything else like this. Again, this is the pick of them. There's a whole heap, and I said to him, I said, how can you make that corner work? Right? How can you do that corner in sandstone? He's like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, how do you make that go around and not only around, but it is a perfectly 90-degree angle, Leumas.
Yeah, it is. Now, the
Right.
hardness of sandstone is
It's not
I have
very
it
hard. It's not very hard. No.
no,
Yeah.
but I have it written down somewhere. I think it's like 2 to 3.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's fragile too when you're trying to cut. This is what Bushy said to me. He's like, listen, if you were to try to do that with an angle grinder, it'd chip, it'd flake, you know what I mean? It's not the best stone to do that sort of work in. It's not going to
No.
hold its groove, and it goes around. And it's one piece, right? It's just the imprint.
It's interesting.
It is very interesting. It's very interesting. And probably the last look again. I want to do a specific day on Down Under because there's a much grander picture that the Masons are involved in, that the Indigenous are involved in, that I think maybe the South Americans, the Egyptians, because when you talk about Egypt, yes, supposedly there was gold from Tutankhamun's tomb gold in Tutankhamun's tomb that came from Gympie. However, there's also boomerangs found in the oldest tombs in Egypt, and they are known as the foreign weapon. And there's a difference between an atlatl and a boomerang in the shape and the way it works, and boomerangs are different, and they were known as the foreign weapon, right? Now, the Egyptian connection. So there's not much to say about the imprint either, Leumas. It's like, what is it? Not sure. Look, when you come down, we'll go and do another. We'll spend a few hours there. Let's do another scientific study on it. Let's see if we can see anything else. I've been one way down the creek. I've been like 500 meters one way down the river that it's on. I haven't been the other way. So the other way goes under the bridge towards the mountains. Maybe it's worth going that way, just as a bit of a experiment. Because I don't know whether we can find anything. I've also sent the drone up. I've also, I've done a fairly in-depth study at this area, a lot of it inconclusive, but there's the imprint, and I suppose the thought that I've had about the imprint, Leumas, is that if you're going to leave a marker for technology or evidence that you were there, maybe you'd leave it at one of the biggest meeting places. You know what I mean? Like that's...
Yeah. I mean, that could make sense. Yeah. And then maybe later people found it and were like, well, I guess, I don't know. Yeah. So maybe people found it later and were like, this is the spot where we're going to sharpen our stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're going to finish, but also we're going to start as well, because I'm going to be here in the next little while. The Gosford glyphs. So these are a set of Egyptian hieroglyphs that are found on...
yeah.
So they're on both walls, okay? Both walls. And they are found in Gosford. There's a national park there. Now, you Google or you Wikipedia the Gosford glyphs. They were done by some ex-soldier as a joke in the 60s. Thing is, in the 60s, this was entire bushland. I mean, what did he do? Wander in there after work to some random 2 slabs of rock, and he's just giggling his way while he imprints an Egyptian story? Look, that doesn't ring true to me. And this one here, this is always, and look, it's been on the the Ancient Aliens and all that sort of stuff. Oh, it's a UFO. It's a UFO. No, it's not a UFO. It's an upside down boat. Okay. And these are the oars and the stuff coming from the upside down.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, here's a couple of the cartouches. This one's definitely a cartouche. I found out later this cartouche here on the right hand side is from the artist who actually did this, and he calls himself a scribe. And basically the 2 birds and this thing above here, he wouldn't normally, it's something like in any normal time that person wouldn't give themselves their own cartouche. However, this guy did, because basically he survived a shipwreck. This story, and there's some more of the glyphs here, this story tells a story of a shipwreck, right? Where basically they came down to meet the people of no deception, right? Which is like the good people.
Yeah.
They got blown off course. I think they were probably aiming, Loomis, they were probably aiming for Stonehenge, right? They were probably aiming for the river mouth at Mullumbimby to go to the Stonehenge.
Now, how far is this from there? How far is Mullumbimby to the?
It's a few
place?
hours down the coastline, right?
Okay.
And but that's what the story says. It's like we got blown off course, we got blown down the coastline, we tried to turn around to come back, and we got hit by a major storm. Everybody died, and yeah, and they made it inland. And apparently, there's people buried around this Gosford area. Depending on your interpretation, could be a pharaoh's cousin or daughter or son. And these glyphs tell the story of that shipwreck.
And why would some soldier from the 60s make this intricate story up on his spare time? It doesn't even make any sense. That's,
No, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But also, so Muhammad Ibrahim, who's an Egyptologist, he spent a long time translating these glyphs. There's been other translations done by Australians, but I side with Muhammad. It's his job to know what these things mean.
Yeah.
And he said not only is it a story about a shipwreck, but it's also written in slang, right? So it's like, it's not even the proper hieroglyphs. It's written in a street slang. And that street slang dates back 2,500 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So that's, and again, it should be said as well, the entity who, we just call the Australian government down here is currently destroying these. And that's half the reason I'm going down there very, very shortly to conduct some UTC investigations, because they're literally being destroyed.
Wow. Why are they going to destroy it? What's their reason behind that?
They want houses.
Oh.
And unfortunately down here, and it's there's no easy way to say it. However, a lot of these indigenous land councils, they all have a price. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, we need this land. How much do you want? And at some point, the cultural significance goes out the window for the dollar value that they're being paid. Now, I know that's a little harsh and probably a little blunt. However, it's also very true down here.
No, it happens everywhere in the world. It's nothing new under the sun. But yeah, it sucks. But yeah, you ought to do. Now, has anyone ever? It looks like there's a bit of moss or some organic matter on there. Is that right, or is that just the color?
Yes, that's true. Yep.
That should be carbon dated. Maybe, I don't know.
Look, I'm gonna wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Mum's the word, Loomis. How about the answer to that one, mate, is D. All of the above is going to be done.
Nice. All right,
and we'll just leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, there, and so outside of this as well, just some more. This is actually, I mean, that's how old. That's a very, very old logo. This slideshow is called Megalithomania 2, and basically it ends in Australia. It starts in Göbekli Tepe and ends in Australia. Cool. It's like 140 slides, and that's just the last little part of it, because there's been so many photos and field expeditions that I've done since I made this slideshow, but you wanted a good little snapshot, so I thought that's what I'd do. However, moving forward, there definitely will be another slideshow done which focuses on more stuff. I mean, there's these gutters in the Blue Mountains, Loomis, that are like the classic South American Roman single piece stone gutters that run down the sides of mountains for ages, right? Like 200 meters, they're just running down the side of a hill. Now you got to remember that Australia is very gold rich, very resource rich. Like every resource can be found here. So, what is our past truly about? That's an interesting question. The things I discussed tonight, Probably each of them deserves multiple podcasts to unpack. However, I think the elevator pitch is Australia is not out of this picture. The problem that we face down here is that it has been systematic and almost total destruction. And to the point, mate, where when we find something, we're going to be very quiet about what location it is in.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be. Luckily, Australia is really big, and there's a lot more that probably is undiscovered. Hopefully,
Yes, and especially I think especially in northern New South Wales, up through Gympie, through the mountain range, the Glasshouse Mountains and stuff like that. I definitely think there is a lot to be discovered. You know, if the awesome listeners want to chip in 20 grand for a LiDAR drone, that'd be great. Then we'll get some good work done, because we'll be able to see through the canopy, because the canopy is the other issue down here.
Yeah, and just to give the audience a little teaser, I mean, the same applies here to Hawaii, and Hawaii is just small land masses. There's still places, and there's a particular place, and one of you listening knows about it, that has a special spot that has been talked about in many urban legends and a book. So we're going to find that. So that's all I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, mate. No, there's plenty coming. There's plenty coming, and I think the South Pacific and you know, South Asian regions are underexplored and misunderstood is what I was looking for there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm glad we did this episode, because these are things I don't think many people in the world know about. And
No, they got no idea.
Even the megalithic community, the larger, may not know about all this stuff. May
No,
not.
definitely not.
Yeah.
I think there was one. Hang on, I'm going to stop share this so I don't flick through this.
Okay. You want me to bring it off the screen?
Yeah, just take it off the screen. I'm just going to find what I'm looking for. But yeah, it's interesting, man. I think the echoes, you know, and just sort of what our next discussion, our finishing discussion on this show is going to be about, is because I think we have here we go. Just wanted to share this quickly, just so you could see it. So what you have here is an early description. The Wizard of Wargaya, a great medicine man of Central Australia, as the signs on his body show. And then you go, that is a pillar in Göbekli Tepe in one of the enclosures.
Wow.
Right.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also need to understand as well, man, that in South America, there is a tribe that has what we call corroborees down here, which is basically an indigenous dancing ceremony that is similar, very, very similar, almost exactly the same as one that's had in Western Australia as well. It's these connections are so far and wide. You know, one of the issues we have down under is that no one has succinctly put them together without sounding like a lunatic, to be perfectly honest. So one of the goals of UTC 3 is to put a picture, a better structured picture of Australia and its global connection and its part in this megalithic story.
That's a good goal, and I'm hoping to really watch it unravel on your show. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, you're coming for a ride as well, man. You're in.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So we want to finish. We wanted to get 2 episodes done today. I think it's probably only going to be 1, but that's okay. That was my problem. I'm test running new gear, so
it's all good. We'll get the other one done in time. No worries.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's always a pleasure sitting down, dude. Always a pleasure.
Yes. It's been overdue.
So yes, absolutely. There's an idea that I had that you've been trying to think about, right?
Yeah.
So, and this was an idea I floated at the refinery farewell, which is to my left. I'm actually sitting out of my shed at the moment. However, and look, we've had this discussion off the mic as well, right? So why do we do this? Why do we have almost like it's instinctual, right? It's, I saw Chant, happy 11th birthday, right? Chant It Down turned 11 the other day, and Unlocking the Code turned 7 the other day.
All right.
So,
Happy 7th.
yeah, it was like the 25th of May or something, like somewhere in there, that we turned 7. So it doesn't matter, even though throughout that 11 years and throughout the 7 years that I've been doing it, when we pick it, we drop it off, and we might do a show for a little while. We might pretend that we're not going to do the shows anymore. It's not that the research ever stops in the background. Hey, man, like everything.
No. The drive never stops. It never.
No.
It always goes somewhere. If it's not on the
Yeah.
podcast, for me, it's like I'm doing a documentary. For you, you might be some field work, whatever you're doing. Yeah.
It never stops, right? So what is that pull? What is that urge?
Yeah.
So what if it's a genetic memory? What if it is a DNA-based memory that once upon a time, blokes like us and, the men and women around the world that feel the pull of these megalithic, whatever this advanced ancient culture was prior to the cataclysm.
Yeah.
What was it? Who were they? What did they represent? Because the common thread that winds through this megalithic advanced ancient civilization is an instinctual understanding that I think whoever built it, science and spirituality were one. They knew, they acknowledged the unseen, right? Science and spirituality were one. Because, to move the 1,000-ton stones, you need to actually be able to move the 1,000-ton stones, right?
Yeah.
So what if, and this is the exploration point. Prior to the cataclysm, like everywhere else, multiple versions of civilizations existed on this planet. The dominant civilization, we say dominant, but the prominent, let's say prominent civilization, was this science/spiritual culture that had technology we don't understand, that they could do things, maybe travel, maybe sound, vibration, light, magnetism. They could move, they could travel, they could do things that we can't do now. But they were mainly, again, science and spiritual based. They worshiped the stars. They were very, again, spiritual, scientific type civilization. Now, a civilization that existed under them was a materialistic civilization. Dare I say it, a capitalistic civilization that had the ability to build structures that weren't as grand and as unbelievable as the megalithic structures we see around the world.
Right.
Now, when the cataclysm comes, again, what's the story? Build a boat, get going. Who survives?
Yeah.
Is the spiritual people that would probably be meditating on a mountain, are they going to survive? Or is it the materialistic people that are going to be able to build quick, fast boats, maybe dig underground, whatever it is? And what if, at the end of the day, more of the materialistic survivors survived because they had the practical knowledge and know-how from building and being materialistic? What if that is the prominent race that survived? However, people like us are the echo of the old race, because again, some would have survived, some wouldn't have survived.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason we feel the pull. Like I've done some past life regression and all that sort of stuff. And one of my, and it made sense to me, I used to be a guardian of the stones, man. I was the warrior sage that stood guard looking after a stone circle or some sort of monument. And I probably died defending that monument. And that's one of my reasons, right? But there's got to be a reason, this pull, this understanding.
Yeah, there is. And I can't say for certain exactly what it is. I think it's a draw to the mystery and the bigger questions about life here. It's a consciousness thing. But way before, at least in my life, my interest in these places has always been a deep interest. Before I
Yeah.
ever knew about this global conspiracy, all this stuff that we talk about as well, I was a kid interested in these spots.
Hmm.
And of course, the extraterrestrial question, I was always fascinated in that as
Mhm.
well. And there's definitely a heartfelt thing there, and that's why, like I say, we were talking about this is our passion talking. This is the stuff that comes from the heart more than talking about what the hell's going on in the world. I mean,
Mm.
that's not as fun to me or probably you. This is the
No.
passion stuff. So this is a heartfelt thing. When it's coming from the heart, it's coming from somewhere very deep.
Mm.
And you're probably like me, where you're never really that interested in this world, like this modern world. None of it
No,
stimulated
not
you in the
really.
same way. Like sitting in school, like I was looking out the window. The importance of understanding our past, though, is a direct answer to where we're going. And I think
Mate,
there's it,
we
it,
call it wagging down here. I used to wag school, like,
yeah.
not turn up to my classes.
Oh
And
yeah.
instead of going and doing something like, naughty, I would be in the library reading books about pyramids, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That literally is what I would do. Because it's like this, school in general was boring, and it was a waste of my time. However, the enduring mystery of this megalithic architecture, but also I think what it represents as well. Like, I enjoy sharing mental health stuff. I think that's important to share ideas and help help each other grow and move and change. And I don't. I've wished upon a star many times over the last 4 or 5 years that I was wrong, and I don't really like talking about that. But this is the reason I'm rebuilding the studio, and the reason I do this, and the reason I do that is because of this stuff that we're talking about tonight. Is because of this enduring mystery. When I talked about unlocking the code, it was unlocking the code to life in our times. And yes, there's a mental aspect to that. There's a spiritual aspect to that. However, the overarching thing was this research, because there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it answers why humanity has allowed itself to become enslaved to debt and live in a world that you have to pay to exist.
Well,
It
this is the
goes deep.
extension, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
This is the extension to the materialistic side, right? If there's a
yeah.
civilization that existed like that with greed and gold and all the things, but it also speaks to the destruction. There's been total, but even and I like the way Billy Carson puts it. I saw him the other day. Good JRE episode, that, by the way. I can't believe some of the things he said. However, you approach people with some of this stuff, and then Agent Smith from the Matrix pops out, right? You know what I mean? And then they just deny. Whereas, the all the stuff that we presented tonight, of course there's a thread through all of that. Like, it's a megalithic culture that existed across the South Pacific.
Yep.
It's 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 something that is ingrained in some of us.
And not in other people. Like, I don't even know fully if my audience, all of it, enjoys when I talk about megalithic stuff. I don't really know. But when I think about, like, what am I excited? That's why I'm making a documentary. Why am I excited about all this stuff? Because there's something very deep. Now, I don't know in my life, if in a past life, if I was ever uh, involved in any of these sites like you're talking about, past life regression. But I don't know if I've ever shared this story, and I'll share it quickly. But
Please
it's
do.
just I had learned. This is in 1999. I was living on the Big Island, and I learned the truth about the world from this guy I call an insider. And so I didn't have a car at that time because I decided to really, like, just minimize my life. And so I was hitchhiking, and I've told this story on my own show in much more detail, like way back, like episode 54 or something. But if anyone wants to look it up, check it out. But I was hitchhiking and I met this lady who picked me up, and she had a car full of people, and she said she was Janet Jackson's bass player. And so I don't know if I believed her or not, but I was like, okay, well, whatever, you know. And they were going to a party on the beach. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm 20 years old. Like, okay, let's go.
Let's go to a party.
So
Yeah.
I went, yeah, no problem. Smoking
Yeah.
a joint in the
Yeah.
car. And then, you know, like, okay, I guess these people are cool. I don't know. There's kind of a strange group. They weren't from Hawaii. They were, you know, definitely outsiders. So I was kind of helping them, like, yeah, okay, drive down here, this gravel road. You know, this is a place that's like way out of the middle of nowhere. Well, these people ended up being pretty weird, especially her. She broke out like some crack and started smoking it. And this
a real
is,
party.
you know, yeah, this is how you get the party started. So
Yeah.
I had helped build the fire for this because it became, you know, kind of late and there was other people there. And I was like, you know what? This is getting too weird. I'm getting out of here. So I left, and no one probably even noticed I left for a while because it was dark. And I walked through different areas in the dark, no flashlight, nothing. And I started stumbling across these rocks, and I hit my shin on one, and I was looking down, and they were graves. And I was like, oh shit, this is kind of, you know, these are old Chinese graves. So
Yeah, right.
I was like, I'll get the fuck out of here. So I ran. I kind of I got spooked. I don't know. Just so I ran, and I went into. I heard it was like these large. We have these trees here called kiape, and they're really thick with thorns. And you know, I'm going through that, getting cut up, and I get to this opening. I hear this dog barking. Sounded like this really scary dog, and I was like, oh shit, you know, I don't even know where I am. There's this guy living in a trailer in the middle of these bushes. Comes out, he's like, who goes there? And I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to get to the highway, you know, I'm trying to get out of here. And he's like, and he calmed his dog down. We started talking, and he goes, you know, yeah, he's hiding out here because he thinks Y2K is gonna melt down all of the computers. So
the first slab that we survived, Leumas.
right, yeah, the cataclysm that never happened.
Yeah.
But so what we ended up talking. I just found out like elites rule the world, and you know, this conspiracy stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, well, hey. And so he comes out of his camper with a book for me. He goes, well, here, read this book. This book really excites me, and it's cool. And it had the cover was ripped off. It had like duct tape, and I was like, okay, well, I didn't even know what the book was. I get home the next day, you know, early in the morning. I didn't even look at the book till the next day, and the book was Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods.
Yes.
So this book came to me in such an interesting time of my life.
What else?
So
Hang on a minute. Back up a second. What else did you talk to this guy about? Did you hang around till the daytime, or did you keep moving?
No, I just only a couple hours. But he ended up being pretty cool. And he's like, "Oh yeah, the Zionists rule the world," and I'm like, "Okay, all right." And you know, he had his ideas on who's behind it, and then they're gonna basically switch the world off next year, and he's hiding out. And like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only talked to him for maybe a couple hours, which was cool. But it's just I went out in such a roundabout way and receive this book. It's like I was meant to get this book. I was meant to go on that journey.
It's a hell of a journey to get to that.
Yeah. With those weird people. Ended up escaping and going through scary and rough terrain, and then all of a sudden I meet this guy, and I first thought maybe he was gonna, like, you know, sick his dog on me. Turned out the dog was nice and gave me this book, and then I read it, and I was like, oh, this is what and as soon as I connected with that book,
25 years later, right? 25 years later.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's crazy, man. That's
so
crazy.
I was meant to know that. I was meant to get it, and it's part of my. Yeah, so it's heartfelt. It's deep. It runs deep for sure.
Yeah, totally, man. And look, I think, can I ask you a question? Because I've got another line of, because obviously I knew we were going to talk about this, and I've sort of been fleshing it out a little bit.
Sure.
Do you like gold?
Not particularly, no.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
either. Okay, let me throw another variation of this at you, okay? Because I mean this sort of came off the Billy Carson JRE episode. I can't believe he went on there and said the Anunnaki and Nibiru was real. Look, the research suggests that he's probably right. However, that's not for tonight.
Yeah.
But so the story goes with the Anunnaki, right? They made us. They made us to mine gold. That's their story.
Yeah.
I don't think that's all they did. I think they made different people, man. I think they made miners. They did. They made some slaves. They made some miners. But they also made people like us. Because I have no interest in gold. No interest.
Right.
Like I don't feel the pull. And the thing is, I've been in gold mining. I did that for a job. I grew up in Ballarat. I know a lot about gold. I know a lot about it, but I don't feel that pull to go and mine it, to go and seek it out. And I don't have any gold jewelry. Right? In fact, I purposely go away from gold jewelry.
Yeah, I'm not attracted to it either. No.
No. I wonder whether or not, if we're talking about genetic modification, because if you think about it, you're not just going to make slaves. You're going to make a hierarchy. You're going to make spiritual people. You're going to make people that understand the elements. You're going to make, and this is the thing. I wonder, and I knew that was going to be your answer, but you don't like gold either. Or what do we like? But I bet you like crystal.
Yeah, a lot more. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I got some on the wall right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've got a generator here. I've got a piece of jade and silver on me right now. And this is the thing, right? You find that a lot of people like us don't have that pull for gold, right? So I wonder whether that's part of the puzzle. And look, I think this is an idea that's going to continue to marinate. I reckon we come back to this idea because there's something to that, right? And that's why it's not everybody. Because I know you've done the same thing. You've gone and talked about the megalithic advanced culture stuff to people. And again, either Agent Smith comes out and goes, oh, no, that's all archaeology is real. We know everything, blah, blah, blah. Or people just glaze over and they don't care. But some people go, wow, yes, tell me more. I need to know, right? This is ringing true to me. Tell me more about this stuff. And I think that there's a marker there, man. There's a marker. It's we're a different people. We're from a different type of people. I think.
Yeah. And there's that explorer side that I have.
Yes,
I know, and
you
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I just came back from a journey a few days ago. I'm going to explore and see. I was going to check out this Pyramid Mountain, and anyway.
I'm T minus 11 days.
Yeah, right.
And
it's not just like a hobby. It's not just the mystery and the intrigue is important, but like I'm to the point where like I wish humanity would revolt and demand that all these ancient sites be uncovered and re-excavated to find out all the mysteries. Like, I'm there, but most people, this is not high up on their priority list. But why?
Open the Vatican library.
Right. And that's like when we first started working together on all these Swapcasts, it's like I always wanted to go back and talk about more. And like here we are, we're doing another project, and it's like this is the passion stuff. I mean, I talked about it before I even knew you, but this is like the real heart of a lot of the things that I love, because it just makes sense to dig into all this. It makes sense that we're being kept from something much bigger, and I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, we come back to the start, man. There's answers in the past, that will help us in the present, that will affect our future. Because if we knew that we were all part of an ancient civilization where color, creed, culture, religion didn't matter, because that's the reason this stuff echoes around the planet. It was not one culture, it was not one color, it was not one people. This stuff is found everywhere, right? This stuff is found everywhere, and this is what we're talking about. There's and I bet you've got all sorts of types of friends as well, man. I bet I've had every color, creed, culture, religion through my class. If you were to go through my Facebook list of friends, there's people from everywhere, all over the world. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And that's because that's who we are as well. We don't see that. We don't see that. Doesn't make a difference to us because we see the human, and the
That's right.
human wants to know, and the human is curious. A lot of us that are of this type of research, we're curious about this stuff, and we're curious to share it with all because we know that if we do that, that will help us, and then in turn help everybody else, man. Like it's.
Yeah.
And that's a drive. It's a passion. I believe that in the core of my soul. I do.
I do too. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't even look at people's spacesuits. What color?
No.
I don't care about that. I've drawn a lot of people in my life from all over as well. I lost it. I was going to go somewhere.
It's getting late, man. It's getting late.
I must be fading a little bit, but there was something important there. But oh well.
Look, the beautiful thing is, Leumas, is this is just the next one.
Yeah.
It's not like, there's certain people that you meet in your life that you start a conversation with, and we started a conversation how many ever years ago, and it's never going to end.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the beautiful thing is that the people get to listen to our conversation. However, don't think that me and Leumas haven't spent multiple hours speaking across the continents, either through messages or just talking to each other about this stuff, because we have. It's you guys just get to hear some of it when we narrow our focus every now and again.
That's it. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. It to me, it seems like this is where, like, none of this ever inspired me. None of going to work every day, doing the normal thing. And this is what I was going to say. So coming back to, you were talking about how these Anunnaki beings created humans, with some of their DNA and whatever was here, this primitive creature, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. There are different levels like you're talking about, because they talk about, if you do look at DNA, we have telomere caps on our DNA where they've cut, like, basically it's like a shoelace cover on your shoelace. Like they cut it, nipped it, or something.
And even modern geneticists say that it's all artificially done.
Yeah. And they also say it's junk DNA and all that. Well, what if people like us, and I'm not trying to sound like we're boasting, like we're better than everybody, but like there's certain people that maybe not all those telomere caps are cut. And that's why we have this interest, and it's much deeper to the heart for the truth of this world than some people who just, I don't know, they're just happy and content being in the world, being sheeple, being systemites. So I feel like there maybe is a different levels of humans, and it could be a soul level thing too. Who knows?
Look, I do think it's genetic. I do think there could be soul level DNA, genetic type memory, core memory. But also, I mean, if you think about the type of people who are into this research, they're all critical thinkers as well, Leumas, right? You can actually think about a fair few markers. A lot of us were gifted kids who were ignored or, not paid attention to, but we had an esoteric intelligence. Old souls is another term that that I would like to throw around as well. And again, is it a soul memory? Is it there's all these things, that it means. The other thing about field trips as well, it was one of the boys, we were on a field trip and we had the radios going and we were with a couple of different cars. And as we entered into the spot where we were going, he was like, "Take me to church." Because that's what it is for us, right? Any field trip, any time that we spend in nature seeking mystery, I mean, you showed me the offering that you gave to the land on your field trip the other day. I do the same thing. I haven't got, as I said, I'm 10 days out and I'm not sure what I'm taking as my offering yet, but it'll come to me. And I will definitely be giving offering. I will definitely be honoring the spirits of the land and the people of the land and the ancestors. And I do that instinctually, However, Do you know what's curious about that though? You know, you talk about connections and stuff like that. One of the field trips, actually, the Gympie trip, the photos I showed you tonight.
Yeah.
One of the boys didn't take an offering, and he lost his pocket knife.
Oh,
right
there. Yeah.
You got to give something. You know what I mean? You can't just go and take. Like there's got to be an exchange on these field trips, because you know the earth is alive as well, and she will look after you if you look after her, and if you honor her and you be honest about and true about your intentions as, you know, explorers and just seeking the truth and understanding. It's you can be guided. But if you go in there and you're trying to destroy stuff and break stuff, and it's not going to happen, you know, and something will probably go wrong. In fact, I heard a field trip again with some people that are a bit arrogant about what they think they know, and they took these people to a sacred site, or, you know, to explore a site, and they're bouncing their heads off rocks. Someone got cut, someone got concussed, someone nearly broke their leg. And it's like, well, to me, it's quite clear you didn't give the right offering. You didn't ask for safe passage. You didn't honor the spiritual aspect that exists everywhere on this planet. Doesn't matter. Again, if you go there with love, respect, honor, and understanding, you will get safe passage. You don't, things go wrong. You know, like, and this is but again, how do we know that, man? How do we know to do that? How is that instinctual within us? Like, there's something there. There's something there that's core within us, within you, within me, within the guys, and you know, you know, Laura, you know, all these people that we know.
Yeah.
That it's within all of us, man. And I think there's something there.
Yeah, well, I just had Mike Collins of Wandering Wolf on a few episodes back.
Oh, he's great.
Great. He is great. And his story's similar to us. I mean, this world didn't stimulate him. It's not like he went down a really dark path and he got hooked on drugs and stuff. This pulled him out of it, and he's totally fulfilled with it, you know, and he's totally interested. He's just like us, you know, and a lot of these people are just like us. So there is a deep drive. Where it comes from, as far as like maybe we were all old souls that had an experience in this older realm, and we're trying to, you know, find our way back almost. But yeah, it's to be explored more, this whole concept you're talking about here.
I'd love to get. Do you know what would be really cool? I just had a thought. We need to get me, you, and Mike on together. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, we can do that.
Let's get a tripod going, because I really enjoyed that episode as well, listening to that one. It was really cool. Well, brother, another one down. Down. I don't have too much more. I feel we're both fading. I need to go and have some dinner, and you need to go to bed. So
yeah,
it's excellent, man. Always excellent sitting down with you. I really appreciate. So just for everyone, Leumas was very patient with me trying to get my new board going here tonight. Turns out I just didn't turn the right dial. It had nothing to do with me.
So those things, I mean, so I'm having a bit of a field trip because my wife's not here for the moment. So I kind of living like a bachelor, you know, I get to do like late night podcasts like this. So this week I've had so much trouble with Premiere Pro, because that's what I'm putting my documentary together on. And man, how much time I spent troubleshooting and stuff. And I just wanted to bang my head through the wall. Like, I was so angry, you know. I literally wanted to, I maybe I have an anger problem, but I wanted to punch a hole right in the wall. And I just had to let go, and I kind of, but yeah, that's the stuff that's the backside of all this that people don't get to know, is the technical side of stuff. Like, it doesn't always work this smooth, you know. It can be really rough. Yeah. And I just want it to be smooth. But anyway, I don't know. But yeah, we should.
But I tell you what, mate. I tell you what, the crowd wants to join in. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks very much. That's just
we didn't get any comments tonight, but it's so late here in Hawaii.
Oh, I didn't promote it at all. Look, if anything, we'll promote the next one. We'll get some other awesome listeners in. I didn't even promote it. I think.
Me neither.
No, we're learning, man. We're learning, and it's more about, I think one of this was more about us, but we just want to play with the StreamYard platform to get to know it a bit better.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Oh,
I like
man.
it. Well,
Until next time.
Yeah, that's it. All right, brother.
Thanks very much, dude. We'll talk soon.
Take care. All right. We'll do this right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few questions so I can just kind of, well, it won't take very long here, but if you don't mind. Sure.
Are you using audio? Are you going to use video or audio or both?
I might use video. Yeah. Because I might put this, if it needs to go in some, so the documentary, you got, a regular story going through. You're going to be in it when I get down under, but also there's rabbit holes that I'm going through, and kind of like how Ancient Aliens, I guess, does it, where you have someone talk for a little bit and they show imagery and kind of stuff. So I was going to just get a few questions down here and just kind of see your reply, and just, it might work for some scenes. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so let's
absolutely.
see.
Please do.
Let's see. What do you think we're looking at as far as the lost chapters of our history? Who were the megalithic builders in your research?
As far as the lost chapters are concerned, I see multiple types. We need to start looking at catastrophic timelines and understanding catastrophic timelines. The builder culture, as we have come to label them, I believe an incarnation of those existed between 70,000 and 12,800 years ago. And I think I'm not against the genetic modification of the hominid to help us understand, or were the builders of the modifiers? Maybe, maybe not. Is there an ancient understanding of technology that this builder culture had? Who are they is a very interesting question, and I think one that we are constantly trying to understand. I think there was a culture that sat above what we call the builder culture, and someone taught the builder culture to be the builder culture, because we see the builder megalithic building culture across every continent, across every type of human, across every variation of human, from Egypt to Asia to Europe to India to everywhere. So I think there was a culture or a type of being that created the builder culture in order to proliferate the understandings that we continue to try and chase.
Cool, man. I like it. And here's another one. What is the way you can tell that these ancient sites are older than the cultures that academia attributes to them?
There's many markers that we look for with these sites. We look for astronomical alignments. In particular, we look for solstice alignments, equinox alignments, alignments with the stars, and the cycles that are forever. Because all of the major megalithic sites, temples, again, across Asia, across Europe, across America, across South America, Egypt, Africa, they all align to solstices or marker points in the sky. And I think there's an interesting side of research that I want to dig more into at some point, where there is some monuments that do line up to a solstice, but not quite. So prior to the tilt happening, right? They're 20 degrees off, or they're 15 degrees off. So that could be an age marker, both pre and post cataclysm, maybe. That's an interesting question. But I think astronomical and solstice alignments is the difference, because aside from if you think about it, and it'd be pagan culture is what we would probably encapsulate it as. They still honor the solstices, they still honor the harvest, they still honor that sort of stuff. However, that was a general understanding once upon a time. We all did that. Right? Every culture, every color, every creed monitored that cycle and built monuments to that cycle. And I think as part of the builder culture in your previous question, they didn't just teach us to build. They taught us to grow food. They taught us the cycles. And we built monuments honoring those cycles. And I think that is one of the key markers. And also, it's hard. There's no other way to put it. Ignorance is how I would put it. You know, there's some cultures that there's just a monument there and they graffiti it, they destroy it. It's just been there since who knows when. And the question you get is, what's this? Who built this? Is we don't know. You know, there's stuff that exists in the time before time. And I think the time before time is prior to the last cataclysm.
Yeah. Cool, man. And then this is the last question. Why do you think there is a cover-up about our ancient past? Who do you think is in charge of keeping this info under wraps at the very top?
Thanks for the nice, easy question to finish. The easiest way to answer that is the global cabal. Whoever is really behind the Vatican and the Vatican Library. And I'd say there's more than whoever runs the warehouse at the bottom of the Smithsonian. Take your conspiratorial pick as to who that is. Look, I think over the last few years, we've got a bit more of a glimpse into who that is and who they are. However, why? Why do they cover it up? Control. Control of the past means you can control the present. If your narrative is the dominant narrative, and if the sheeple, which is the majority of the human race, will agree and go through with you into your delusional narrative of the past, which obviously is a delusional narrative now, then you can control them. However, if you tell people that once upon a time every color, culture, creed, and religion got along and they had a common understanding and a common megalithic culture where they honored the stars and the earth and the moon and the water and the elements, and they understood what ether was and they could harness the ether, and color, culture, creed didn't matter, then the entire divide, conquer, fear, and control mechanism that we are under doesn't matter anymore. And that's why. But I also think there's fear there, right? Because the thing is, the research that we do makes sense. The dots that we join make sense. And you can't have that getting out, because it makes a hell of a lot more sense than the traditional narrative that's pushed in, Western culture and school and education, and none of that really makes sense. It's all built on a bed of sand. Time and time again in my research, I've dug into what the Western answer is for these things, and there's nothing behind it, like a single paper or a single sentence, and they've used that single paragraph to extrapolate doctorates. It's like, hang on a minute, how can you do that? That's only a paragraph. You're drawing thousands and thousands of words out of 100, whereas there's thousands and thousands of words that make a lot more sense to the narrative that we're discussing. And this megalithic advanced culture that once existed, I believe that they honored the human, or they were an evolved human, because they understood that not only do we need to honor the planet that we are on, because that is where our life comes from, but we need to honor each other and the sun and the stars. And as I said, the earth, air, fire, water, ether, there's a different understanding. And that understanding transcends any three-dimensional materialistic capitalistic bullshit. And that's the reason they want to hide it.
That's an awesome answer, man. That's good. That'll definitely be in there for sure. Yeah. Well, man, it's great to see you again. Back in
Yeah,
action.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's good. It's good. Look,
Yeah.
it's all happening, dude. It's all happening. I had to step back for a minute, and what I realized, Leumas, and I was discussing with you on the phone the other day, it's like I had moved past the old space. And yeah, as I say, this is my, if I go like, what's this?
Here, I'm gonna go ahead and end this stream. I forgot.
Yeah, end the stream, dude. Yeah.
There.